Hey everyone, Kunik here, back with a few D&D horror stories for you today. In today's stories, we have two different instances of things to avoid at your tables. In the first story, we have a dungeon master that has some really interesting house rules. And in the second story, we have a player application to join a campaign that is incredibly sus. So with that all said, let's roll for initiative and begin the stories. Story number 1, The Secret List of House Rules. Here's a minor rant about a GM who had a ton of house rules, but didn't write them down. Attacks of opportunity. Tons more stuff provokes attacks of opportunity. What things exactly? You don't know until an attack of opportunity is provoked upon you. And you don't get to take attacks of opportunity unless you call out that you do so when the opportunity arises. Here are some examples. Moving into a threatened square instead of out of it. Drawing weapons. Checking inventory. Use a skill such as diplomacy or intimidation. Activating command word magic items. Taking longer than 15 seconds in real life time to decide what to do on your round. Banned spells. Some spells are banned. You don't get to know what they are until you try to cast them. Spells include all, save or die, teleport, polymorph, summon creatures, most illusions, and a random assortment of divinations. GM didn't want us to win a fight, except through the combat he envisioned in his mind. He didn't want us to get to the destination except by going through his obstacle course. My foolish sorcerer took teleport as soon as he could. When we were ambushed en route, I tried to teleport the group back to safety. The spell failed, and I lost my turn. GM told me to not prepare that spell anymore, and it took me 3 weeks in real-life time that he should let me pick a different 5th level spell to learn instead of teleport. Some spell effects have changed. What spells? I don't know. What changes? It's not clear. One time, a fellow player's character's arm was chopped off, and regenerate was changed so that it no longer regenerates lost limbs. The GM made his character slowly develop a baby arm for the next 6 months of sessions. You know Mind Blank? The spell that explicitly states that only a wish or miracle can bypass its effects? He one time pretended I didn't have the spell active, duration 24 hours, and then that it was too late to take it back because what was done was done. I was contesting this as it happened. Supplemental books allowed. Only the ones that the GM owns in person. Since this is an online game, we don't have the option to peruse his collection. He won't tell us what source books he owns. If he owns a book, but doesn't know where it is, then you can't use that material. He doesn't look for things if you ask him to. His general attitude is that the player's handbook is for the players, and everything else is for the GM and the GM alone. Some retcons allowed. Occasionally, he'd decide that he didn't like the direction we had taken, and will sometimes retcon up to 3 sessions to not have happened. He takes us back to when we made the first decision he didn't agree with, then have us take the option he wanted us to take all along. Cinematics. We've all been players who had a chance to strike as the villain monologues. You take it. When the idiot is distracted, smelling their own farts, you initiate the combat with a surprise round in your party's favor. In this dude's game, if anyone was monologuing, you weren't allowed to do anything because... Cinematics. Sometimes he would use cinematics to lead the party into a trap, against our will. Sometimes he makes decisions for our characters during the course of a cinematic. The worst offense was when we finally found the boss of the current arc, some devil who made their base in the former courthouse of the town. We arrive. Cue cinematic. The party attempts to get the drop several times, but combat cannot initiate. Then, during the course of the cinematic, had the party walk into a pitfall. Total party kills as a plot device. When you want the party to know you mean business, or they aren't going where you want them to, or if they say something out of character that you don't like, consider a TPK. Easy and cheap, TPKs can be achieved at any level, from 1 all the way to 20. Nothing carries forward the momentum of a fun adventure like being surprised with Cloud Kill at level 3, and when the party wakes up, they owe their life to whoever revived them. It's the perfect plot-driving mechanism. Yeah, it sounds like the OP stuck with this GM for quite a while, and honestly, I don't see why. This is the GM that has main character syndrome while they're the GM. They want to dictate and run the campaign how they want to run it, and not let the players make any sort of meaningful decision on their own. So he's effectively telling the story that he wants to tell, with zero to little interaction with the people at the table. In my opinion, he should either switch to being a player, or just go and write a novel. It seems like that's what he really wants to do anyhow. Alright, onwards to story number 2. Only got his application, but a player submitted an application for a game I was DMing a while back, and I wish I had saved it, somehow. Looking back, I'm curious just how bad he would have been as a player. But I'd never punish my players like that. Let's see how many red flags you can spot. So, he starts off with his half-elf's noble childhood. 3 long paragraphs about life in the mansion and how happy he was with his parents. All irrelevant, since he was about to lose all of it before his backstory concludes. He was willing to give actual character details on his father, but his beautiful mother only got physical descriptions. Funny that. It was in the 4th paragraph that we got to the night. His father had been gone for days. He'd often be gone for weeks on business, but he was gone for really long this time. On this night, 2 men barged into the house that he didn't recognize, but I quickly recognized them as the mayor and my father's business rival. Did you recognize them or not? Even more confusing, because he then says his mother smuggled him out of the house before they barged in. So, how did he know who they were? How did she know they were in trouble before barging in? And if his PC was out of the house, how did he know they raped and murdered my beautiful mother? I'm willing to assume you heard one of them yell, "We're here for the mansion!" But then why did they burn down the place afterwards? He says he never found out what happened to his father, but also that he found out in the paper the next day he was murdered. Claims he was hungry on the streets for weeks, but that he was found by a certain someone that kept him from starving. The day after the night in question, said someone was my brother, who I never knew I had. I found out later my parents never told me I had a brother. Your character has a 1 in int, doesn't he? Those 2 sentences, plus that his brother taught him to be a thief, were the only 3 sentences his long-lost brother, who raised, saved, and trained him, gets, while his dead parents, who were nothing more than plot devices, got 3 paragraphs. And, despite being raised as a thief, he said he was taking levels in assassin, and he was the perfect assassin, a ghost, never caught, never identified, a rumor. It was at that point, at what point, that my sorcerer powers activated. Now I had enough power to get my revenge. Except it wasn't enough. So I made a deal with a powerful demon. Oh, for duck's sake. I made it clear we were starting at level 1, not 5. And remember how he was an untraceable assassin? Well, he's also super well known. The ground trembles from my might. Men run from my power. They turn to ash from my gaze. Everyone fears my wrath. I would have loved to see our goblin monk whoop your demigod's butt. He also posted links to 7 separate theme songs for his character in this application. This is my battle theme. This is when I'm at the tavern. This is when I'm at the market. This is just my general theme, like when I enter the room. This is for whenever I start talking about my backstory. This is for when I'm with my character's girlfriend. No girlfriend was mentioned, so I guess he was expecting me to give him one. And this is my epic, final battle theme. I guess that last one was for when he went Super Saiyan and saved the day by himself. Okay, and here we have another character that is very clearly main character syndrome. But somehow worse because this guy thought he was going to stroll into a level 1 campaign with all of that. And yeah, I think he just read way too many backstories or ideas from other campaigns, said, I want all of that, and threw it into his backstory without really thinking what made sense. Now, is it a bad idea to have a detailed backstory? Certainly not. You know, your character can be at any age. If you join the campaign at age 60 but level 1 because you never were an adventurer, you're going to have a full life behind you to discuss. And while you shouldn't go into every minute detail, you should certainly bring up the relevant points, and it might end up being somewhat lengthy. But the key is to be a little obtuse where you can. That way the DM can pull from your backstory and introduce characters from it that you're not going to be totally familiar with. You'll know them from your backstory, but you don't know what the DM has in store for them. Same goes for items or locations or anything like that. So instead of saying you're from some specific town and then describing what every little detail in that town is, just describe the type of town it is and leave it there. That lets the DM be creative with it in the future. Again, that doesn't really apply to this guy's story. He was just putting details in the wrong place and emphasizing the wrong things. But yeah, don't do this. Do what I suggested instead. Anyhow, that's it for today's stories. If you like them, the source for them is always in the description below. And if you liked the video and you want to see more videos just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell notification icon to be notified of my future videos. And as about 80% of you watching are not subscribed, it would be doing me a huge favor for you to do so in order to help keep the channel growing. Anyhow, while you wait for my future videos, here are a few related videos that you can watch from my channel in the meantime.